Hello there, kings and queens, and welcome back to another episode of Faith Helps Podcast. And I am your host. You should know by now, it's your girl Diamond Booth. And as you can see, I'm still going strong with keeping the audio and the visual at hand. And if you are watching on YouTube, obviously you see this is not my office. I am at my humble abode, and you can probably tell past the curtains that it is nighttime right now. So I am actually recording this podcast the night before it will actually be premiering, because all day tomorrow I will actually be at a conference and will not have any time to really pay any attention to trying to record, upload, do videos, all that. So I am actually doing it tonight, and I feel like it was actually relevant to do it tonight, given some of the things that were coming up. So initially, I was very hesitant to do this podcast episode at my apartment because I don't have the most luxurious setup and the most beautiful background and all this other stuff. But ironically, I was reminded as I was reflecting on this literally less than an hour ago of an episode I was watching on the B-Side app. For all my dollars, you know what that is. But on the episode that I was watching, the host Tim Ross and his guest, I'm forgetting who he was interviewing, they were talking about the fact that sometimes, I got it wrong. I thought it was my lovely Tim Ross, Uncle Tim. It was actually a Forex trading episode that I was watching, and it's Forex Beginner podcast on YouTube that I was watching. Anyway, he was interviewing someone, and they were talking about how sometimes we wait till like everything's perfect to start doing something and to like actually do the things. And the guy that was being interviewed, he was kind of just talking about the fact that that was something he really had to break out of his shell on when it comes to like just doing the things that you're trying to get done, working towards your passion, working towards what you feel called to do, what you feel passionate about, what you just want to do, what you feel gifted to do, what just interests you, whatever it is, just start working towards it, and not always waiting till things are perfect. Because if you wait till things are always perfect and you have the perfect setup and the perfect podcast room and the perfect this and the perfect that, who knows what you could have missed out on by waiting for the perfect time. So instead of worrying about like the perfect setup and the perfect background, I kind of like remembered that and checked myself. And I also thought, what better place to do it than to do it at my creative space. So in my apartment, I literally have a little corner of my living room that is just dedicated to my art space. And so as you might see right here, there's a desk, and I have like all of my craft stuff here. Just sharing a little bit about me, because oftentimes on this podcast, I talk a lot more from the space of wanting to teach, encourage, motivate, and challenge you guys. And just like as with in actual therapy, there's also a value in an exchange of, I don't want to necessarily say intimacy, but transparency, but also just allowing people to see who you are. Like even with my clients, it's not the way I do therapy. I'm not expecting my clients to just come into therapy and pour out their soul. Whenever I have opportunities or I see an opportunity to share, I do that in order to build the rapport and also to build the relationship, because it works so much better when you do that. And I also, having been in therapy before, I know how uncomfortable it can feel to be the one just constantly answering all of the questions and knowing nothing about the person you're sitting across from. And so my approach to therapy is a lot more collaborative, a lot more transparent. When it becomes relevant, I share my experiences or details about myself if I find that it would be beneficial for that client, or if I find that through me sharing, this will encourage them, or will be able to relate to, they'll have someone that they'll be able to relate to in a way that they maybe have never experienced before. And you'd be surprised how often that actually happens. But nevertheless, to come back to the point, I am sitting here in my little creative space with my little collage items that I was debating, like, showing you them. But I don't think I'm going to do that this episode. Maybe another time, just because I feel like it's a lot to pick up. And then just as I said that, I changed my mind. So for those of you who are strictly audio listeners, I suggest you head over to YouTube, because I'm going to share this. I'm sharing a collage that I'm working on. It's a piece that I did, I want to say it's almost been a year ago when I did this. A little less than a year, maybe like 7 or so months. But I'm just putting it closer to the camera for you to see the little details there. As you see in the center, it says travel. And so this is a part of a larger project that I've been working on. That is piece 1 of 9. And when I finish all the other 8 pieces, it'll be one large wall art piece. I'll explain it when I finish it. And I will reference this moment to see if you guys actually have been paying attention to these episodes. But I thought I'd just share that. And so ultimately I decided what better place than to sit at my creative space for this episode. Enough about where I'm sitting, enough about what I'm thinking about and all that other stuff. It kind of boils down to a more important point that I wanted to bring up to you guys. And that's about kind of that theme of not waiting till things are perfect, but also being mindful of what you're giving your energy to. And so for that first point, the thing that I wanted to mention, and this is something that I have to constantly say to myself within this past couple of years, ever since my nonprofit finally got like verified and official, when I finally was able to make it official. I had to keep challenging this imposter syndrome. I had to challenge this idea of I'm not at the point where I need to be, or things aren't perfect or aesthetically pleasing and all this other stuff. And I had to constantly remind myself. And I felt one day God gave me this verse to kind of sit on and meditate on, and to keep bring it to the forefront of my mind when I feel that anxiety or that nervousness, or even if I'm honest, some shame or insecurities coming up. And it's Zechariah 4:10. And I'm not going to get it verbatim right, so forgive me now. But what the verse basically says is to do not despise the day of small beginnings. And the latter end of it, I know this is not verbatim, as I said, forgive me. Do not despise the day of small beginnings, for the Lord loves to see a work begin. And that's the piece that has stood out to me more so, is for the Lord loves to see a work begin. All right. And so sometimes when I notice those moments of insecurity, I just have to remind myself of that. Like, God, the way I talk to myself and also talk to God is, Dad loves to see a work begin. He's watching out for me. He's proud of me in this moment. No matter how small I feel, no matter how imperfect it may feel. Yes, do things well. Yes, get better. And do not allow the fact that you're maybe not at a place to do things in a particular way hinder you from doing them at all. So what I want to distinguish between is, there's a difference between postponing working on something and doing something because you feel like you don't have the means to do so, versus I am continuing to work. I'm going to continue to strive and work towards these things despite not having that. I don't know if that made sense because I was thinking it through as I was trying to say it. So I'm going to say it again. What I'm trying to get at is the point that sometimes we as people get to a point where we have this project or this idea that we want to work on. And because we're not, whether it's financially or skill wise at the level that we feel like we need to be, we decide to avoid it completely instead of continuing to work on it. In the episode before last, I said to you guys, if you feel like you're bad at something, just get better at it. What I was trying to challenge you to do is to not get complacent with being mediocre, but also don't get complacent with where you are to the point that you don't do the things that you feel like you're passionate for or feel like you're called to do or feel like you're gifted to do. Still work towards them. Just because you're not quote unquote perfect or at the level that you want to be at for something doesn't mean you completely abandon ship. No, I don't feel like I'm at a point in a skill level yet when it comes to podcasting and editing and all this other stuff. I'm not at that level that I want to be yet, but what you don't see me doing is stopping. What you don't see me doing is giving up or saying, I'm going to wait till I'm at this level and I can afford to have an entire, special luxurious studio and all this other stuff. No, we're going to make some lemonade out of these lemons. You guys are going to see my apartment. You're going to get to know a little bit more about me. I'm looking right now at the Emerge, art piece that I have behind me. I did that at the start of this year. I believe it's actually saved on my Instagram. And part of the whole idea was emerge. I feel like there were 3 words in particular that God gave me for these next 3 years. And the word for this year was emerge. And I've been seeing myself emerge in ways that I never thought I would. And it's crazy sometimes because I'm like, that's not me. Like, ooh. And then when I look back and reflect, I'm like, yo, God is so dope. Like the way he will start putting in you what you think you don't have enough of to be whatever it is or do whatever it is you feel like he's calling you to do, he will do it. For real, I wonder what would have happened if Moses would have just trusted God, Stutter and Stanley and all, and just do what you're being called to do what you're being told, and God would place in you what he is calling, what you need, what you feel like you need so much, he will place it in you. But even sometimes our imperfections and our flaws and the things that we don't like about ourselves are the things that God really wants to use the most. And so that is something that I have to sometimes say out loud. So yes, I'm saying it out loud to you guys, but as I'm saying it out loud to you, I'm also reminding myself. So right now, this is my own little self-therapy almost, or self-affirmation, so to speak. And that's what I want to encourage you guys to do the same. I want you guys to hear this and not just say, oh, okay, I listened to the podcast. No, I want you to be able to listen to this, but also be encouraged and challenged and start thinking about things differently and start doing the things that you feel like you're called or created to do. I feel like there are too many people I see in this world and in this generation that they're just they're not living up to their potential because they're allowing insecurity and fear and shame and anxiety and this and that hinder them, or because I don't have this or I don't have that. If you guys go back on my YouTube, go way back, actually go to, if you really want to see something funny, go to my original YouTube page. Or just scroll way back into my Instagram page. You will see me with videos. I'm holding the camera. It's shaking. You can't hear the quality that great. You see all types of others. There's one episode that I have before I started doing this podcast and started making a little bit more improvements. There was a point in time when almost every single episode that I was uploading, I think at that time I was doing the Write With Me sessions. You could hear the dogs in the background. You can hear Kenya and Kobu going off and crazy. And it is by God's grace right now that they are being quiet because they are still here. But I am trusting that the Holy Spirit is resting upon them and giving them a spirit of contentment to shut up while I am doing this. But nevertheless, as you see these things and I share these things, and a lot of the stuff that's on my Instagram, I left there even after I went through my season of transformation, because I want to challenge myself, just as I challenge you. I challenge myself to not feel like I need to hide who I was, or I need to be ashamed of who I was. Did I have some qualities, and did I have some imperfections that were pretty problematic, or things I didn't like, or things I wanted to change? Yes. Am I ashamed of them? I'm at a point where I can look back and not be ashamed of them and be like, yo, that was me at that time. And in a new way, that is still some version of me. And I'm kind of merging skill set and ability with character a little bit, because right then in that moment I was speaking more towards character. But overall, as a person, I've seen myself grow a lot, and I feel like if we documented and paid more attention to our journey as opposed to just constantly looking at where we're not, we would, one, feel a lot more inspired to keep going, and two, we would stop settling for where we are and settling for giving up because things aren't where we feel like they should be. Okay, maybe you don't feel like you're the best, for example, the best barber, right? Maybe you feel like I can do one simple cut, but I'm gonna just stay away from cutting hair until I can do the designs that I actually want to be able to do and see people do on TV. That makes no sense, right? Anyone who is logically thinking through that would know that that doesn't make sense, because in order to get better at cutting hair, you would need to practice. And there's a big difference between practicing on a mannequin versus an actual person. That's why they have you practice on actual people when it comes to cutting hair, styling, whatever, right? The same thing applies to anything else in life. Sometimes we don't look at it the same way, but it is the same. And I look at this podcast the same way. If I waited until I can speak completely clearly and eloquently without any hesitation or then I would never have started. If I waited till I had the perfect environment and the perfect studio, goodness gracious, Lord, who knows when that would have been or will be? Because if I'm being honest, where I'm at right now and what I'm working on within myself and in my personal life, and in different situations that's happening in my life, I know that that's not a place I'm going to be in anytime soon. And that, as far as I see. Now, God can work some miracles. Don't get me wrong. He can work some miracles. But nevertheless, he didn't say, start this thing or this project when you have XYZ, XYZ, XYZ in place. Sometimes God just tells you to start. And you just got to start. You have to stop canceling yourself. Stop invalidating yourself and just start. And so I think we would all see a lot more success in our lives if we actually honed in on recognizing that God is pleased just to see you trying. He is pleased to see you starting the thing. Instead of just talking about doing the thing, he is pleased to see you starting the thing. When I started my book, initially I spent a long time just saying, when I finish school, when I this, when I that, I'll start it. And as I started it, I started realizing, oh, this is why I was feeling this pull and this pressure and this push to do it, to just start, even though I didn't feel like I was the most eloquent. There has been so much that I've learned about myself in this process. And I think that's why God loves to see us start a thing and loves to see a work begin, because there's so much he can reveal to us about ourselves, but also so many, different skills and knowledge and insights that we can pick up along the learning journey and along that way, that process that we go through as we're improving. It also helps us stay a little humble, and it helps us be more compassionate when we see someone else getting started at a thing or pursuing their dreams and pursuing their career. And so I want to encourage you guys to really focus this week on, or this weekend, the rest of this month, whatever works for you and your process and your schedule. But take some time to really reflect on, okay, what do I need to continue working on that I've stepped away from out of insecurity or fear or anxiety or shame, whatever it may be, or feeling like I'm not perfect yet? And what is it that I need to kind of remind myself, do not despise the day of small beginnings, for the Lord loves to see a work begin? What area of my life do I need to start repeating that mantra and reminding myself of? And I think that you will see a lot of things change about your life. You will see a lot more productivity in your life. You will see a lot more growth in your life if we did that. And so that is one of the things that I wanted to kind of leave you guys with. And that was like a part of it. I think another part of it is for us to also be patient with ourselves in that process. Sometimes we get so flustered or frustrated that we completely give up, and we never take a moment to get back on the horse. We just say, you know what? I can't do it. I'm not good enough. No, you are good enough. You are capable. Maybe you're not perfect. That's okay. Don't give up. Keep trying. If you constantly give up on something, you constantly avoid and wait, first off, my question to you would be, who told you you have more time? Who told you that you have another year to do that thing? Who told you that you will be in the same health and condition that you are now at whatever X time that you are planning to do it? You see, sometimes we focus so much on like our own plans, and we take for granted the next day. We take not only life for granted and that we're going to live to see another day, but we also take for granted our circumstances. Sometimes we take for granted that our body will still be functioning the way it is. There's an Instagram page that I came across of a young woman who lost all mobility in her legs, and she was a dance instructor. She was a choreographer. And she talks about, like, very transparently, I can't remember her Instagram handle at this time, but she talks very transparently about the fact that she thought dance was going to be forever. And so there were things that she wanted to do and opportunities that she wanted to take, but she never took them because she assumed that I'll be able to do it when I'm X age. I'll be able to do it at this time. I'll be able to do it after I do X, Y, and Z. Who told you you are going to have that time? And I think that that story was just so powerful, just hearing her story, because it's a reality check for all of us. It doesn't have to be something drastic like losing full mobility. It can be any type of health condition. It can be any type of, it can also be a situational change. Who said that you might not, in a couple years, you might not have to be the sole person being the caretaker for your parents or a sibling, right? You don't know that. So sometimes God is pulling our hearts a bit more to do something at a certain time frame in our life, because He knows the future. He knows the beginning from the end. He knows what lies ahead in our life, but we don't. And so sometimes we have to trust that push and that inkling, and to not take it for granted, because we don't know what the future holds. We don't know how things are going to unravel. And I think that we do ourselves a injustice, and we set ourselves up for failure when we do take on that assumption of, I got more time, or I'm going to be this age, this health, this mobile, and this functioning this well for the rest of my life. You don't know that. There's a woman on the Dear Future Wifey podcast that I watch, and she lost her sight, and her husband left her because she lost her sight, which was absolutely, choosing my words wisely, messed up. Okay, for lack of a more intense term, but you guys could probably use your imagination to think of other adjectives to use. But regardless, the point is, it was messed up. But also, that's another example of, you can't take things for granted. You can't take situations and your health and your opportunities for granted. You also can't take the timing for things for granted, right? I feel like there were a lot of opportunities, me kind of holding myself accountable right now. I feel like there were a lot of opportunities during that COVID time that I could have took more advantage of, and I didn't. And there are a lot of things I wish I had done, and I didn't do it because I assumed, I'll be able to do it then. Or if I'm keeping a hundred, there was also moments where I would say to myself, I don't feel like it, or I don't feel like doing that. And now I'm kind of like kicking myself, like, dang, Diamond, like, you could have already been there, done that, gotten that thing done, instead of now it's getting postponed. Because sometimes God allows grace for a certain season, and you never know how our world and how our society may change or shift in a way that might be the perfect breeding ground for what it is that you want to bring into this world, or leave this world with. For example, maybe there's a book that you are also working on, and you have been feeling this urge from God to just start working on it, and you've postponed it and you've put it off. You don't know if maybe this is the year that people are going to gravitate more towards whatever that topic of that book was going to be, right? Say you wanted to write a book on creating collages, I don't know, and in the year 2024, a celebrity comes out about collaging, and then millions of people all around the world want to start learning more about collaging. Well, had you been working on that book, it would have already been ready and something that you could produce and give into society, and see grow, if you had been obedient to when God first told you to start, right? And so, in summary, my encouragement for you guys is to remember that God loves to see a work begin. And for you to also don't despise the small starts, the small startups, and the small beginnings, the small errors that you may make. It's all a part of the learning process, and it's all an opportunity to, one, learn more, and improve more, as well as an opportunity for you to grow in ways that you wouldn't had you skipped this process and this period of time. So challenge yourself this week to just get started. Okay? So that is what I wanted to leave you guys with. And there's a second piece that I wanted to leave you guys with. And right now, to be completely transparent, in the spirit of transparency and honesty, my mind is blinking a little bit, right? So, yeah. I think that's all I'm going to have for you guys today. My audio listeners are probably like, what is going on? Go on YouTube and find out. Anyway, I know there was a second thing I mentioned at the start of this episode that I wanted to bring up, and I don't remember it. And I think that's okay. And if it comes to mind, I will release a part 2. Otherwise, you guys will catch it on the next episode. All right? Until then, I'm giving myself another second to think. And I encourage you to use this moment of silence to reflect on what has been said thus far. Yep, it's not there. So when it comes back to mind, or I listen back to this episode, do my edits and whatnot, I will either release a part 2 based off of that second topic that I had mentioned at the start, or I will just save it for next week's episode. So until then, if nothing else, laugh at the mistakes, smile through the process, embrace the learning journey, don't give up. Remember that God loves to see your work begin, and just get started. Nike, just do it. And if nothing else, remember, faith helps. Peace out, guys. Bye.